Portuguese food is so good. First off, I already mentioned it, but I have to do it again because it was my favorite. Portuguese bread is bread sent from God. It is so good. Like, because it has the crisp, it's crisp on the outside and warm, but then it's super soft on the inside. So it's just perfect. And so if I gained weight on my mission, it was because of bread, for sure. So the bread is amazing. And the bread is even more incredible because Portugal, they're very good at making soup. I mean, they have one in particular that's well known throughout all the country that's called caldo verde. And it's just this little soup, this green soup with a little chorizo inside it. And you just dip your bread in it, and it's incredible. So I had tons of soup on my mission. So soup and bread, their pastries are really good. So the most well-known one in Portugal and even in Europe is called the pastel de Belém, which is, I don't know if it translates perfectly, but the Bethlehem pastry. And it is so good. It's just this little tart with this yummy custard in the middle. And it's incredible. I can't describe it. It's like this special, I can't remember exactly what they do, but they use some type of custard and they mix it with egg, and I can't remember how to describe it well, but it's incredible. They have what they call the bolo de Berlim, which isn't unique to Portugal, but it's just this donut filled with that same custard a similar custard that's in the pastel de Belém. It's like pretty much a donut filled with goodness, pretty much. And so their pastries are delicious. They have what they call chocolate salami in Portugal. And there's not actually salami in it. I mean, I was told there was, but there's not actually salami in it. It looks like a salami, but it's made of chocolate. And it's really good. It's super good. And because they're in Portugal, though, you get all these other types of food as well from all these other cultures. So Brazil, you get your feijoada, which is off the charts. It's this bean and meat stew that you put on top of rice, and it's just incredible. But then you get one of the favorites in the mission, and from the missionaries, is Cape Verde. Their main dish is called cachupa, and it's a similar thing. It's just beans. It has what is called. What they do is they dehydrate. So they got the beans. They got tons of meat. It can be fish. It can be beef. It can be anything. But then they also put in corn, and they cook the corn in a pressure cooker, so it's not the normal size. It'll like get really big, and so it's super filling. Oh, it's really good. In Portugal, if you're gonna go to Portugal, you have to try one drink, and it's called brisa. Brisa just translates to breeze. In Madeira is the one that is the part of the Portugal that actually creates it, and it's just this drink that is so good. And being on the island drinking it, it's even better. But they have flavors. The main two flavors are apple and maracujá, which is passion fruit. And if you go to Portugal, you just gotta try it. It is so good. It's so good. It's like America's, I don't want to say Coca-Cola, but maybe America's Coca-Cola. It's that good, that famous. I don't know. I know that a lot of people cook with alcohol. A lot of people cook with alcohol, but they love drinking iced tea in Portugal, so that's something you got to be aware of, because we're not supposed to drink iced tea. And so you talk to people about that all the time. So you gotta stop drinking iced tea, and they'll offer it to you all the time as well. There was one time I actually drank iced tea. I didn't know. So.
The food that, like I already said, you eat a lot of fish, but the best part for me about Portugal was the bread. That's why I gained a lot of weight. It's because the bread is so good. That's the first thing that I heard when I got called to Portugal. My dad had been there before, and the first thing that he said to me was, the bread is so good. And once I got to Portugal, I realized just how true that was. The bread is delicious, and it's so cheap as well. They have freshly baked bread for super cheap. Probably, I would say most of the time we got our loaves of bread, like a pretty good size, for maybe 50 cents or less most of the times, every single week. And it's delicious. So they are known for their bread and for their pastries as well. They have pastry shops everywhere, cafes on every single corner with different pastries. And they use a lot of egg. So that's, I would say, one of their main ingredients for mostly their desserts, but a lot of times also their main courses is eggs. So they have a lot of egg-filled pastries. And they have this one, their famous pastry is called pastel de nata, which is basically just this this tart with this like nata inside, which is basically this like milk-like substance, but a little bit thicker. Basically kind of seems like sweetened condensed milk, but a little bit more on the yogurt side. And then you put canela, what is that called? Cinnamon on top of it. And it's delicious. They drink a lot of juice as well. They drink a lot of coffee. It's very rare to find someone that doesn't drink coffee. It's a social thing that they do. It's a lot of smoking as well. Almost every single person on the street that you see is smoking. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. But they do smoke a lot. So the food, that's basically what they eat, and it's delicious, the food that they eat. They use a lot of herbs to cook as well. And they eat a lot of potatoes, and they do eat a lot of chicken. They cook it a little bit differently than we do, but they eat chicken, and they eat a lot of beef. They have a lot of pasta as well. And they have delicious gelato ice cream. And a lot of people will come from Italy. For example, in Leiria, my second area, there was this Italian man that immigrated from Italy just to start his ice cream, his gelato business in Leiria. And it is the best gelato that I've ever had in my life. It's so delicious. So they have shops like that all around Portugal, of just shops full of gelato, and it's so good.
The traditional, like, classic Portuguese meal, it's called bacalhau. And what it is it's codfish. They eat a lot of fish there. And what it is in the store, every store you'll go in, and at the back of the store usually, they have this place where they have all these codfish, and they're like dried and salted. So they're like these dried fish. And what the members will do is they'll take it and they'll go home and they'll soak it in water to get all the salt out. Like, the salt is a means of preserving it, so you don't have to refrigerate it. And then they take it home, they take all the salt out, and then they usually cook it with like potatoes or olives or rice or something. And it was actually really good. Like, I had a lot of companions that were like, I don't know about fish, like, I'm not a huge fan. And then it was like pretty good. It's not like a standard fish, they like mix it with other stuff. So that was really good, but that's like, you'll definitely eat that, like, a ton. What else? I got to eat a lot of food, like Brazilian food, which is so good. They cook their meats and their rice and their beans. It's always like meat, rice, and beans. And it's so good. And they like know how to use their spices, and it's just like, it was super delicious. Some of the crazy foods I ate. One time I ate this African dish that was like, it was supposed to be like a bunch of different animals of the sea kind of mixed together, sort of like shrimp, but they had the shells on, and like clams and oysters, and it was all kind of mixed in one huge pot. That was kind of crazy. I had a companion who ate something with like a chicken foot in it, but you didn't eat the chicken foot, it was just like in the soup, so she was like, why is there a chicken foot? But that's funny. I ate, what else? Oh yeah, the pastries there, like I already said, they're to die for. Like, the pastries are so good, and it's just like a donut, but like super classy, like a classy donut, and it's like, dang, this is so good. You know what I mean? The bread is so good. You can buy little rolls that are delicious, like pretty big rolls, for 10 cents. And so, like, if we were ever on the run or anything, we could just like grab a roll and like eat that. You know what I mean? Because bread there is so cheap. So produce and bread in Portugal is so cheap compared to the United States. Like, the cheapest things are bread and fruit, which here it's like fruit is like really expensive produce, but we could buy tons of fruit for nothing. And the interesting thing was, like, we always had a budget every month for how much money we could spend, kind of like all missionaries, but I never ran out of money. Like, I always felt like we had plenty, and like, yeah, we tried to be conservative and like not just like go out to eat every single day, but like, it was never pressed for money when it came to food and stuff. So that was nice, because I've heard some missions, like, it's a little bit more, you have to like budget strictly, but at least when I was there, it wasn't hard. What other crazy foods? Honestly, the food there is really good. I ate some crazy foods like in members that were a little bit more poor, like or like members that didn't have a lot. They would give us foods that were sometimes like a little different for what I was used to, but like you just can't help but eat it because like they're just so loving, and it's always kind of the same idea, like rice and like a meat and usually like beans or something. But that was cool. What else? Oh, there's all these special, you'll go there, it's a huge thing in the mission when you go there. Portugal has a bunch of cool things that America doesn't have, like really good cereals. Like a lot of missionaries go crazy for this spiritual. There's a certain cereal in Portugal called My Time, and it's delicious. It's like granola with chocolate, and it's so good. Like you can't even believe it's breakfast, but everyone loves that. My Time is cool, like huge there. They have a lot of special like chocolates that United States doesn't have. They have a lot of like really delicious cookies or, oh yeah, they have their milk in boxes, like little cardboard boxes. So that was interesting for me when I first got there. And they don't refrigerate their milk, but it doesn't go bad. I don't know how that happens. They don't refrigerate their eggs either in the grocery. Then you come home and you stick it in the fridge. What else? It's kind of like the craziest stuff you'll eat is going to be at member meals, but at your own home, you can usually, you buy what you want to eat, and you can usually just like not eat tons of crazy stuff. You know what I mean? They have a lot of things that are similar to the United States. Oh, one thing that was interesting is they don't have, it's really hard to find baking soda, and the members go crazy for chocolate chip cookies, and they call them their American cookies. And the sisters are like the only ones that know how to make American cookies. So every event, every baptism, they're like, sisters, make American cookies. And so like there would be sisters that would, for Christmas, they would email their family and they would send them like a huge thing of baking soda so they could make cookies. I think they have baking powder, but not baking soda, or at least it's really hard to find. So, and if you don't have that, your cookies aren't very good. Like the chemistry just doesn't really work. So, oh yeah, and then they don't have chocolate chips. So every time we made cookies, we had to like chop up a chocolate bar. So that was another thing. Sisters would be like, send me chocolate chips. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, the members just love those there.
The main difference whenever I got there was how much they favor chicken and pork over beef. Like I grew up in a family that was a very beef-eating family. My dad is a cow vet, and so we'd eat beef almost every meal. In Portugal, beef is more expensive than pork or chicken, and so you're going to be having a lot of pork and a lot of chicken and a lot of rice dishes. They really, one of their main things in cuisine is to cook things and put it on top of rice. There are some random dishes that when you first see it, you think like, what the heck is that? Where they get like maybe like a hamburger patty or a chicken thing, and they just set it on a plate with rice, French fries, and like some lettuce to make a salad. And that's a very simple dish that you're going to see a lot in Portugal. And another big difference is their bread. Portuguese have amazing bread. It's like there are very few places in the United States where you can find bread as good as the common bread in Portugal. It's just whenever you get it freshly baked out of a padaria, it's like one of the most amazing things. And then they have the pastries there. Like you always think of France or something as as having really good pastries. I think of Portugal now because I've tried a lot of their cakes, I've tried a lot of their pastries, and they're just some of the best things I've ever had. There's this one area that I served in that's famous for this one specific cake made at one specific cafe that everyone knows about. And so every day at 11 and at 5, there's giant lines out of this little pasteleria, which is when they finish baking everything. That's the times whenever they come out of the ovens. And so there's giant lines down the street for these they're like little balls that have an egg cream filling inside, and it's wrapped in cinnamon sugar. They're called bolos de Berlim. Like everyone knows about it, and they're just some of the most delicious pastries I've ever had. And I brought my companions up to it. They've had they've had the same cake made at other places, and they're like, I don't know, I've had lots of different opportunities to have this cake. I don't think it's going to be the greatest I've ever had. And then they take it from this one cafe and they eat it, and they're like, this is really the best one I've ever had. And their pastries are just really good. And one thing that they point out a lot between us and our food and Portuguese food is our food is a lot sweeter. Like our bread is sweeter, and especially our desserts are sweeter. You bring them brownies and they love brownies, and you bring them like cookies and they love American cookies just because it's so much sweeter, because we use a lot more sugar where they use a lot more flour. And yeah, the Portuguese food is really, really good. And being in Portugal, you also get to eat a lot of African food, which is really, really good. Like Cape Verde has some delicious dishes that I had a few times. And you have Brazilian food, which is really, really good. You kind of get a little taste of that whenever you go to like Tucanos or Rodízios or something like that. But Brazilian food is a lot of meats and rice platters and stuff like that. The food there is just amazing. Anyone who likes to eat, they're going to love Portugal.
The people are really varied there. They're from a lot of different places, and so they'll serve you a lot of different types of food. Traditional Portuguese food is mostly just rice with some kind of bean, and then they eat a lot of fish, especially one called bacalhau, which means codfish. They eat a ton of it, but it's different from here. They like pound it and salt it almost into like fish jerky, and then they'll cook it into things, and it is really delicious. I mean, even people that hate fish like the bacalhau in Portugal, it's really good. Yeah, so that's like their main traditional food that any Portuguese person you ask is like, oh, what's the food of Portugal? They'll tell you it is bacalhau. They eat a lot of it, and it's really good. Yeah, other than that, their food's fairly normal. They eat a lot of soup, and like I said, get used to rice and beans because you have it with every single meal for 2 years, but it's good. Yeah, and I guess some weird things, like they don't really have salad dressing. I mean, you can find it in stores, but it's really expensive. Pretty much every salad they're ever going to make, and they eat a lot of salad, but it's just going to have like oil and vinegar on it and salt. And I don't know, I thought it was weird at first, but now I think it's delicious. So probably enjoy that. The weird foods that you'll find is when you go and teach all the immigrants. Right? The Brazilians, for the most part, just have some really good food. You'll eat a lot of Brazilian food and you will learn to love Brazilian food because it's delicious. They do a lot of meats, and once again, rice and beans, I guess, is just really common for every culture because the Brazilians and the Africans eat a ton of rice and beans, and so do the Portuguese. But the Brazilians just have the most fantastic ways of cooking their meat. It's so good. I don't know if you've ever been to Tucanos or a place like that, but they make food like that, and it's really good. Yeah, so you'll definitely enjoy that. They also make really good like cheese bread, and they deep fry bananas, and it's really delicious. Yeah, you'll enjoy that. The Africans, I really enjoy African food, but some people have issues for it. It's not for someone with a weak stomach, because it's kind of just, it's whatever they have in their kitchen made into a giant, massive soup and put on rice. And so, like, sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really not. It just depends. Most of the time it is really good though, and sometimes they'll serve you weird things like pig ear or chicken feet or like weird meats, but for the most part, it's pretty normal and really good. And honestly, the Africans will probably feed you the most because they are just the nicest people you will ever meet. We would joke about how we just got excited every time there was an African, that's who you go in contact because they're nicer, so like, you'll meet a lot of them and they're really nice and you will definitely learn to love their food. Once again though, I mean, I said the Portuguese and the Brazilians eat a lot of rice and beans. The Africans eat a lot of beans. There's a ton. So I just hope your stomach is ready to handle it. But it is really good.